Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. We are here for yet another episode of an Evolved Review. I am joined by none other than Caleb Stovall, straight from the SWN. That's right, I got the digs on.
Hey,
And as always, I am your host, James Caleb Kitchens, and we are today going to get into our bread and butter once again. Dark Side of the Ring, the reason we started this program to begin with. And this one is an episode that is near and dear to my heart, not only because it has DDP in it,
yeah,
and I think to a lot of people as well. I think that it's tragic, kind of, the story of Chris Kanyon, and kind of how he really didn't get the opportunities that he was probably worthy of
yeah.
at certain points in time. Uh, Folks, if you haven't seen the episode yet, it's available on Vice. You can find it all over the place. If you haven't seen it yet, this program probably won't make a whole lot of sense to you. So go check it out. Pause this video. Go watch the episode. Come back and see us. Um, Man, I have a ton of notes here on this one, because we had so many people. I don't want to beat around the bush though. Let's talk about who I would say is the star of this episode, James Mitchell.
Yes, I was about to say, dude. And the line of the day will be, "You mother."
Right? Yeah. I mean, not only does James Mitchell do such an incredible Canyon impersonation, because he sounds just like him,
Yes,
um, but he's like he's such a good storyteller, right?
yes.
And that's where it comes in. Is he's so good at sitting there and telling the story. He's like a Jake Roberts, or what's the guy from the Collision in Korea episode that everyone loves so much?
Scott Norton.
Scott Norton. Thank you. You'll have to forgive me, folks. I've been sick all week. We kind of have been going hour by hour on getting this together. Like we
Yes.
were going to record last night. If you're a frequenter of our podcast and you're watching this on the video stream, you'll notice that we're recording in the daytime,
I know.
which is absolute madness. Um, but yeah, James Mitchell is one of those guys where, like Jim Cornette, like a Scott Norton, like we hoped at one point that we would get Ric Flair, but that's probably never going to happen now. It's one of these people where I want them to come back on Dark Side of the Ring over and over. I want to hear
Yes.
what they have to say.
Yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to hear more from James Mitchell. I thought that he's always been someone to me who was so underrated. I mean, you know, I think like a lot of his stuff in ECW gets swept on the radar, and so does his TNA run. He had a great TNA run. I mean, a couple of good ones. He had a great rivalry with Raven, where both of them, who were promo masters, were able to go back and forth with each other. Then you added Shane Douglas into the mix at one point. That was just good stuff, you know. And then some of his stuff like that he did with Abyss. Like I was just like, God, he's just to me, he was just so underrated. And I think this episode is one of those episodes where people are gonna go, wait a minute, you know, this guy was a lot better than we thought he was.
I always loved James Mitchell in TNA. I mean, I think that's where I mean, obviously, I saw him in WCW as a kid, but in the TNA run with Abyss is where I really started to pay attention to him
Yeah.
and started to realize that he was such a beneficial part of that whole thing. I don't think we get the TNA run that Abyss had without James Mitchell.
Yes, absolutely. And I listened to Jim Cornette's review of the thing, and he was even talking about how he was the star of this episode.
Yeah, agreed.
Vanden Balls.
Right, right. Uh, One of the things I want to talk about here as we get into this is, a lot of these episodes, they typically, they're kind of like the parables you would hear as a kid. It's like there's always this sort of underlying lesson. It's like any of the Greek tragedies.
Hmm.
And in this one, they talk a lot about like his upbringing and how, he had a very religious upbringing. And he was kind of taught as a kid to hate himself
Yeah.
because um, because he was gay, and hopefully that's something that we see in our society that's becoming less and less of. our society is becoming more and more accepting of people, and you know, people coming forward and being able to be who they are without the sort of stereotypes surrounding that or the stigmas surrounding that. And I
Yeah.
think that's really the important lesson to take away from this is really how important that is in and out of the wrestling business, because you have a lot of very openly gay or bisexual or pansexual people in the wrestling business today. Um, and I think that's fantastic. But as they show in this episode, 30 years ago or even 20 years ago, that is not something that would have been possible. I
No.
mean, there's a lot of independent wrestling locker rooms. I mean, even here in the Southeast, where I would not want to have, if I was gay, like I would not have wanted anybody. I would not have wanted anybody to know that. There's locker rooms right now where if I had come out as being gay, I would not want to step into those locker rooms today.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. There's still a very macho mentality in the wrestling business and everything, and that's it's so weird to think about, you know.
Well, a lot of that, and this is something that your great friend Brian Last also brought up, is this whole thing that they're talking about with, if Canyon had come out, then he would have been a heel. They would have made fun of it. They would have made it his gimmick. It is at its core a WWE problem because you didn't see a lot of that in WCW or ECW, but forever Vince McMahon has always sort of made it this thing where anything that's not masculine, anything that's like homosexual in nature or whatever, has to be made fun of. You're a heel. They talk about this in the episode where they do the sunset flip and the guy's pants will get pulled down. He'd have a thong on. They did this with Billy Gunn and Chuck Palumbo a lot on SmackDown. I mean, that was the whole gimmick.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I remember that, and I also remember, they had some clips from back in the old days, and you remember like the announcer would be like, "God, he's kissing other men! Oh my God!" Like, and that's yeah, uh, doesn't age well. Let's just put it that way. Does not age well. And then of course, remember like when you know Dustin Rhodes first portrayed Goldust. He was kind of supposed to be like a transsexual, gay type character, and he was a heel. And he would, and like he would literally tell the crowd, he'd be like, "Everyone, shut up, or I'm gonna come out there and kiss every single one of you," or something like that. And I sit there and I watch it now, and I'm just like, ugh, that does not age well. Like
Yeah, it's
it didn't age good when they first did it, in my opinion. Like I was just like, I don't like this.
yeah, it's troublesome to say the least. I mean, it was hard to watch the Boy George segment with Undertaker. And I'm surprised there's not a lot of heat on Undertaker for that. But I'm sure he was just doing what the office told him to do. I doubt that. I highly doubt that they just surprised Undertaker with that, and then he decided to beat the shit out of Canyon.
Well,
Um,
and it's funny that you say that there's not no heat, because I've seen the opposite. I've seen that the Undertaker's been accused of bullying back in the day, apparently.
I have seen that. Who was it that said Undertaker told people to bully him? It was one of the La Resistance people,
Oh, Rene Dupree.
Rene Dupree. Yeah, he said that Undertaker commanded people to bully him
It was either
because
him or Rob Conway.
no, it was Rene Dupree
Okay.
because he said that he wouldn't go out like drinking with the boys and stuff, and apparently Undertaker took umbrage with that and commanded the other people in the locker room to bully him. I don't know if there's any truth to that or not.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
don't know. You kind of have to take that kind of stuff with a grain of salt a lot of the times.
here's the thing: is it's like I would not be shocked if something were to come out about Undertaker eventually, given kind of what we know about his personal life. Uh, but as of right now, it's just kind of hearsay, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but here's what was interesting, right? Because you mentioned the Boy George segment. What did you think about the guy saying at the end though that he doesn't believe that WWE would do that?
Yeah, man, that was Raphael Maffei. I wanted to talk about him. So he was a former executive for WWE, and now he's an executive for AEW.
Hmm.
And I thought that he might kind of be in the fire because of some of the comments that he made on this episode. That's beginning to be a recurring theme of the second half of season 3. Um, because AEW, as everyone knows, is incredibly progressive. But the stuff that we're seeing this guy saying, I mean, him saying, I don't think WWE would do that. How long did he work for WWE? Because Vince McMahon, like, that's his MO. Like, has he not seen any other episodes of Dark Side of the Ring? Has he not watched? I mean, obviously, he probably hasn't watched this podcast, but like, if you're listening or watching this podcast, you know that we are currently in the midst of planning a top 10 sins of Vince McMahon episode that we are, I promise, one day going to record. And half of them have to do with him abusing the shit out of his talent.
Yeah.
This is
Um,
absolutely, not only is it something that WWE would do, but it's something that WWE is known for doing. They're famous for it. It would be like saying, well, R. Kelly probably didn't pee on that person.
yeah. Okay. That's a jump. But anyway,
That was a jump. That was a jump.
that was a whoa. Now, I don't know if I could even compare that, but I don't know. Like when he said it at the end, I kind of took it. I took it a few ways, but one of them that I just kind of gained out of it was like he wasn't. I don't know if he was defending them all the way. I think he was just trying to be like, hey, like you're saying that basically we wrote this segment in order to make fun of him and stuff like that. And he's just like, I can tell you that, like, maybe because he was involved in the segment that, he was kind of like, I can tell you that that wasn't my intent.
Right. And it probably wasn't. I mean, that's, probably par for the course for Vince McMahon right now.
Yeah.
Over the years, he's really learned how to do this and get away with it. So what happens is in the production meeting, it's oh yeah, he's gonna come out and Undertaker's gonna powerbomb him through a table or something. And that's gonna be the whole segment. And then he pulls Undertaker aside before he goes out there and says, "Hey, really lay it into him. I want you to destroy this guy." That's how it goes.
Yeah. And that's, God. I mean, because I'm looking at some of the shots in the thing and like that chair shot to the head, I was like, oh my God, like that's
Given
ridiculous.
given what we know about CTE and things like that, and the way that Kanyon acted in later times of his life, that's horrifying. I
Yes.
don't know if his brain was donated to be studied or not.
I'm not sure if it was or not, but I hope it does kind of because we could probably see that.
Right.
And I don't know, like because the Young Bucks of all people brought up a good point. They were like, it was very violent. Like it was just it felt unnecessary. It was like, okay, beat him, like beat him up just a little bit, and then power bomb him through the table. Boom, we get out of there. But instead, it was like just this violent beat down.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of any other segment on a WWE program that resembled this really. As far as like them just setting up a somebody to come out of a box and Undertaker to beat the bejesus out of them. I mean, those chair shots were. I mean, those were not worked shots. I mean, those were hard shots.
No.
Either this was done intentionally or Kanyon pissed off Undertaker when he was there before, and Undertaker was getting back at him. But either way, it's not acceptable.
Yeah, I didn't like it and stuff like that. But if we go back just a little bit though in the episode when they talked about his WCW days, um, I really liked this stuff because it was interesting though. Like I felt like they kind of got the timeline a little bit wrong. They made it seem like the Mortis and the Glacier stuff started before the NWO, and I was just like, no, that started after the NWO. Like,
Yeah, I mean, he debuted in '95 when they were doing the minute work nonsense, and then
oh,
people
that was
saw that
hilarious, by the way.
it really was. And
That
then
was hilarious.
people saw that Canyon was fantastic, that he was doing all these like innovative moves and that he, had a good look and everything. And so yeah, they went into the him and Glacier angle. And yeah, in the episode, they kind of make it seem like that angle predated the NWO and then the NWO came in. But I think what it is more that it was going to be more of the main event, like it was going to be a bigger deal, and then the NWO kind of overshadowed it. That's how it really happened.
Well, yeah, but in here's the thing in the episode, they kind of make it seem like it was all the NWO's fault, and I'm just like, yeah, but even James Kitchens, as a booker, would tell you that like if the NWO is the hottest thing, you roll with that.
Right.
Like,
And
sorry.
the NWO was the hottest thing possibly ever in pro
It is.
wrestling.
It's still the hot. Like, dude, it's been 20 years since that stuff happened, and we're still talking about it to this day. That merchandise, that T-shirt, that little NWO shirt, that's the most simple design ever, is still selling to this day. Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and Hogan themselves have all said that they're like, we're still able to just like collect money from our NWO merchandise.
I don't want to make you feel old, but that was 25 years ago.
Okay, 25 years ago. I said 20 years ago. I heard 20 at some point. 25 years ago. Good Lord. That means it's even bigger.
Yeah. Yeah, because they did something this year for the 25th anniversary.
It did.
Yeah. So,
They had
um,
the NWO all together. Like the first time that Hogan, Nash, and Hall and Bischoff have all been in the same room basically together. And I would have loved to have gone to that, by the way. I don't care what
yes,
people say about Hogan. I could care less. I would have loved to have gone to that.
it would have been cool for sure.
Yes.
Um, let's talk about some of the other speakers on this episode. What did you think about DDP's contribution here?
Well, first of all, when he showed up for the first 5 minutes of the episode, I thought, all right, well, James Kitchens just marked the fuck out. Like,
Accurate, 100% accurate.
and he did the yo, it's me, it's DD, and he did his catchphrases. I was like, oh my God.
I mean, I was on the couch like,
Yes. Yes, I know it. But no, I loved DDP's contributions and stuff like that. DDP's a great storyteller as well. He really hammers home too at times when stuff was like really really serious. But you could tell that he loved Canyon, and they didn't really get to mention this in the episode, but Kanyon had a really good run, and so did DDP with the New Jersey Triad thing. It was in the '99 not very good days of WCW, I'll admit, but there was still some stuff that was pretty good, and the New Jersey Triad was actually pretty good. It was DDP, Kanyon, and Bam Bam Bigelow.
it was probably the only thing worth watching in WCW at that time other than the
Yes.
cruiserweights.
Yes, and then of course, I loved everyone's impression. Who's better than Canyon? Like,
Yeah, I loved where he was trying to be like DDP's like I guess like his mentee or whatever, like his like student where he was dressing like him and acting like him and all that stuff.
yeah, that was in 2000. I remember that storyline. Canyon basically turned on DDP, and because everyone turned on someone in Vince Russo's world, and
Right. For no reason.
I know, right? So Canyon started imitating DDP, and it was great. That was even when he did the Judy Bagwell on a forklift match, which I'm surprised they didn't mention that in the episode. I got to tell you though about a Canyon promo that still sticks with me is that Road Wild '99, and they're about to face the Harlem Heat, and he comes out and he goes, by the looks of you rednecks, most of you cannot afford cable TV. And they're like all just revving the horns and stuff like that, revving the motorcycles. And he just like, normally I come out and ask a question and see if you people are as dumb as you look, but I ain't gonna ask that because there's no way that you people are as dumb as you look. Like it was,
He cut some bangers, man, on the mic back in the day.
he did. He's very underrated. Like he never got his just due. And I love also the fact of they really mentioned that he was the stunt man for Oliver Platt and
Yep,
Ready to Rumble. I
and
don't
he taught David
know.
Arquette how to wrestle.
Yeah, yeah, like he helped everyone do bumps and stuff. When they did the shot of Juventud, though, right? Like of them coming off the ropes. I know what they were trying to do. They were trying to show Kanyon as Oliver Platt, sort of, but it's like they showed Juventud jumping off, and I was just like, well, no, that was just Juventud. Like the wrestlers were just the wrestlers in this movie.
Right,
But
yeah.
um, what do you think about this line in the thing, real quick? Just a lighthearted subject. The greatest wrestling movie of all time. Which I know that they were just being funny about it, but
I could see how the Young Bucks would think that that's the greatest wrestling movie of all time.
oh, I just think that they were just being funny. Like you could tell they were laughing. Like
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know, man. I think the Young Bucks are so true to, like, I think their current gimmick in AEW, we talk a lot about, like, this has been said a million times. Stone Cold is Steve Austin turned to 1,000,000%. I
yeah,
think the Young Bucks are the Young Bucks turned to like 105%. I don't think their on screen characters are that far off from who they really are. You know what I mean?
probably.
Nothing like super against them. They just seem like douchey dicks, you know? And they probably are.
Well, hey, you know what? If it works, it works. It's worked out for them so far.
Yeah, I mean, they are the most famous Hardy Marks ever. So,
Look,
it's
here's
like,
the thing. I keep telling, I keep saying this, right? People are surprised in AEW when these guys turn heel or something like that. And I'm sitting there just like, they have never been faces.
right,
The
people
Young
just
Bucks,
cheered them.
yeah, exactly. The Young Bucks were never a face tag team. Never.
Right. Yeah. I don't want to turn this into an AEW podcast. So let's
I
swerve
got
back in. Let's talk about the Young Bucks actually a bit. They talked about how, you know, he taught, Ready to Rumble, he taught Arquette to wrestle. And the idea of that 3-level cage and them actually using that in WCW for better or worse, was Canyon's idea for them to do a real match with it. And then him taking the bump off of the cage, I mean, that regardless of what you think about that match, that was a really cool. I mean, that was an awesome bump, especially back then. It was just like, oh man, that's crazy. I think Canyon's dead.
maybe the timing might not have been good to use that bump.
No, no, not really.
Yeah, but that's a different story. But I'm glad that they didn't dive into that. But no, no, that is a pretty cool bump though, and I remember I had seen that matchup. So I saw in Blockbuster, right back when Blockbuster existed, and they sold wrestling tapes or rented wrestling tapes. There was WCW 2000, and it was the Triple Cage. So I was like, oh man, I gotta check this out, and I watched it, and I was like, what the fuck am I watching?
Yeah, man. I mean, you think about like how rough the 6-man Hell in a Cell was,
Yeah.
and that was a pretty good match. But I mean, it was like
I
probably
was
the
about to
most.
say, I thought the 6-man Hell in the Cell was great.
It was good, but it kind of devolved into chaos, as you can imagine.
Yeah,
That triple cage match was all over the place from jump.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, WCW 2000. We don't want to talk about it.
But you kind of have to because that was when Canyon sort of got like his big runs.
That's true, and I mean, fortunately, he was kind of at the top when WWE bought them, and that caused WWE to look at him more closely, and they actually gave him a pretty decent run when he first came into WWE.
Yeah, because they realized that he could go with anyone, and you could tell that he was pretty good on the mic and everything like that. So they were like, "Hey, we got a good smarmy heel right here."
Yeah, I mean DDP talks in the episode about Kanyon being in the top 5% of his opponents he's ever faced. And if you sit and think about the list of people that DDP's been in the ring with, that's a hell of a compliment.
Oh yeah, and like I said, I loved hearing DDP in this episode. But it's so funny that even though James Mitchell wasn't a part of WWE or anything like that, he still is somehow involved in this whole episode. Like he literally was involved with Canyon the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear that they had this really kind of odd relationship where, Canyon kind of relied on and confided in James Mitchell. The physical abuse of Mitchell, that, obviously, we don't condone that at all. And,
No,
I'm not giving Canyon an excuse here, but I mean, this kind of goes back to what we talked about at the top of the episode. When you grow up being taught to hate the person you are, uh, but that is who you are. That messes you up, right? And I think that a lot of his problems with depression, his problems with, maintaining good friendships and relationships and things like that.
bipolar.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that is really tied, I think, to him being gay and basically hating that part of himself because
Yeah,
it's not something he has the ability to change. And he's thinking, why is this something that I want? Why is this what I'm into? Why is this who I am? And he can't be himself because it will be the end of his career. And he was not wrong to make that assumption because that is how wrestling was at that time.
yes,
Um, so I think that definitely led to a lot of the problems he had. It's not an excuse for him to repeatedly put his hands on James Mitchell to the point where James Mitchell has to pull a gun on him.
yeah.
And that sounds like it got pretty excessive. I mean, and we only got, a short episode about this. I'm sure that throughout their decades of working together, this probably happened a lot.
Yeah, you could tell that it happened more than once because I mean, like I said, it came to the point where he had to, pull a gun on him, and I mean that was crazy. And they even asked him. They said, "Were you prepared to shoot him?" And he was like, "Yeah, I was prepared to blast his head off." Like I
Yeah.
was like, "Damn." Like it was crazy. And again, it just goes to show like just how good he is at telling the story, man. Like
Yeah.
I just, dude, I want him to be at more wrestling conventions just telling stories.
Yeah. I mean, I would love for him to come to like Dragon Con or something like that. I got to listen to DDP talk for like an hour there, and it was fantastic. So I would love to see him come to any of this stuff, WrestleCade, Dragon Con, any of that, and talk
He
about that
might
sort of
after
thing.
this episode.
Yeah, it might. I mean, it's possible. I'm going to be at WrestleCade this year in November, so maybe he'll be there. That would be great.
In fairness, he is not doing bad for himself. He's one of the executive producers of Impact Wrestling. So like
Yeah,
he's one of the creative people.
yeah, yeah. But he has a lot of stories to tell. Now, uh, do I want to say this? Eventually, we're going to get some Impact slash TNA related Dark Side of the Ring episodes. Uh,
Really?
and well, yeah. I mean, it's just going to happen.
Oh, well,
Probably not.
yeah, obviously.
Probably not while they're still in business. But if that ever changes, you better know we're going to get. Because, like, right now, anybody that's still working there or wants to go back there or whatever, they're not going to talk. Right? But we know that some shit went down in Impact slash TNA. I mean, we
Oh
just
yeah.
know.
Oh
It,
yeah, absolutely. It's already been like, kind of nodded by Jeff Jarrett, Bruce Pritchard, Eric Bischoff, AJ Styles. Like they've all said it. So
yeah.
yeah, I mean, obviously we're gonna get some. Um,
Dark Side of the Ring season 7, we'll probably get a Dixie Carter episode.
maybe I don't know if it would necessarily just be about her though.
Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, I could definitely see a Herb Abrams esque episode based around her. I mean, there probably wouldn't be cocaine and cowboy boots, but we don't know. We don't know.
We don't. But uh, what did you think of Brian Cage in this episode?
I was just going to bring that up. I'm glad that you brought it up. Um, I really loved that story about him being at the indie show and Kanyon coming and putting him over.
Yeah,
Um, I had a lot of respect for that because, as you know, I've worked with all ranges of talents, whether it's people who are kind of upper tier AEW type folks, and all the way down to people who just were famous at one point or whatever. And you'll get all ranges of things, right? Like you'll get somebody who's like a really high level like A-lister person. They'll come in and they'll be a complete asshole. You'll get another person who's an A-lister and they'll be the nicest person you ever met. Flip that around and you'll get somebody that comes in that's not really that famous and they'll be really nice. Or you'll get somebody that comes in that's not really that famous and they're a complete dick and you think that they were flying around on private jets and staying in 5-star hotels. It's there's all ranges of personalities and it's not really tied to that person's success. So when I heard this about Brian Cage, I mean that to me is something that's like really fantastic. You know what I mean? And it reminded me of I guess I could tell this story now. It's been long enough. It reminded me of when we had Christopher Daniels come in, and we couldn't talk about this at the time because this was right when AEW was starting up. Like All In had already happened, and they were getting ready for Double or Nothing, like the first official like AEW
yeah,
event. And so Daniel's knee was injured, and we were not allowed to talk about it publicly at all.
right,
Um, and I mean, Daniels is like, I'm not going to be able to make the booking. And we were like, well, we've told everybody you're going to be here. Um, can you still come? Like, just as a meet and greet. That way we didn't say, oh, he's going to be here and then we don't deliver. Because I always hate to do that. I never want to be in that situation if
right.
possible. And so the day before the Daniels agrees to come, and then like the day before he shows up, he says, I could probably do a tag team match or something like that. When he walks into the gym, he was limping, dude. He had on like the big knee brace. He was barely getting around. I was like, this guy is not going to be able to wrestle. No. Not only did he wrestle the match, he took all the heat in the match. If you
Yeah,
go back and watch that match, he got the hot tag out on Joey Lynch.
yeah. I was on commentary and I could not tell that he was injured.
Right. You couldn't. If you saw him walk in the door of the gym when he got there, you'd have been like, this guy's not going to wrestle. I mean, he pulled out all the stops. He was the nicest guy. Um, can't say enough about him. But anyway, I don't. This is not a Christopher Daniels episode. Um, but I really loved the Brian Cage commentary here. You can kind of see Canyon's influence. I never put it together before. I didn't know that Canyon sort of trained him.
Mm.
But now that I know that, you can kind of see that influence.
Yeah, I can see that by a lot of the moves that he does and stuff like that. I think Brian Cage is actually very underrated. And I think that this episode kind of let people see a new side and a newfound respect for him.
I will respectfully disagree. I think I think Brian Cage has an excellent look. Nobody could ever deny that. I just think that that's the extent of it. I don't think he's a terrible wrestler or anything. I just don't know that I don't know that he really gets it from a psychology standpoint. But I don't want this to become a Brian Cage critique episode.
Gotcha.
Um, trying to limit our tangents here. I only got so much voice today, folks. Otherwise we would go off. We would.
Right.
Um, so let's talk about Canyon. Kind of spent a lot of his money entertaining people. James Mitchell talks about him turning his house into like a beach nightclub.
Yeah,
I thought that was a cool fact.
that was a really cool fact. I was like, damn, that's awesome. Like, but it's interesting because when he wanted he's trying to keep a secret and girls are trying to flirt with him Because when you throw a house party like that, okay, back in the day, and I mean, a lot of the times, girls will flirt with you, because they're like, oh, well, you're the guy, putting all this together and stuff like that. And so when girls would flirt with them, he would no sell it. And so, that's when, and girls can sense when a guy is gay. They
Yeah,
just know. So that's why, like, James Mitchell was like, hey man, they can tell when you're gay. Like
right. Yeah, I mean, it would have been pretty obvious. I mean, the women that were going after Kanyon were probably gorgeous. I mean, he was famous at the
oh,
time. He's got this excellent like house, So,
oh yeah.
um, that being said, they were probably hanging all over him. I thought that was a cool thing they talked about. Now, this is kind of where we get into where things kind of took a turn for the worst. He's
Mhm.
in WWE, multiple championships. He's like a mid Carter on the program. He's doing really well. He gets a shoulder injury, and as we all know, even up until fairly recently, in WWE, if you're in the middle of a major angle and you get hurt, it's incredibly hard to come back from that because Vince is very likely to give your spot to somebody else, and it's very likely to not be there when you get back.
Yeah, and I'm always on the fence about that kind of stuff because on the one hand, I think that, when they come back, you can put them right back where they were and see,
Right.
what happens. And I get that. But that whole thing of like, well, if you get hurt, then, yeah, that angle or your spot right there is going to be given to someone else because you have no choice. You have to fill it. Like,
Yeah, I mean the show must go on for
yeah.
sure, but I mean punishing people for getting injured,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. I think
should have
that's
never been a thing.
stupid. Like Finn Balor, for instance, right? Like,
Right.
he got the title, and on the night that he gets the title, he gets hurt because of someone else.
And
Like,
he's never been anywhere near it again.
yeah, exactly. And then when he falls off the top rope for no reason. That's a different story.
Yeah, I heard about that. I'm so far away from WWE programming now that it's like I have to I hear it from somebody who heard it from somebody.
Yeah.
I'm not even remotely in tune with that anymore. But I did hear that through the grapevine. So he gets the shoulder injury, and in the process of trying to rehab the shoulder, he ends up turning to steroids,
Yeah.
and this leads to him getting a bad blood infection, which makes the whole situation even worse. And during this point in time, this is where he was going through a lot of depression. James Mitchell talks about coming over to the house and him just sitting in Canyon's house and him not getting out of bed for 2-3 days at a time.
Yeah. Which is, interesting then because what would James Mitchell be able to do? Like, did he try to go to wake him or something? Did he try to talk to him and stuff like that? I mean, how many times did he try?
Yeah, I mean, we don't know that stuff. I mean, I imagine that he was just trying to kind of be there for him,
Yeah.
but we don't really know, that, and probably never will regarding that.
Yeah.
Um, this kind of all like steamrolls into his really erratic behavior in kind of the final months of his life, where he starts coming to WWE events and sitting in the crowd and like trying to get people's attention. And they talked about him climbing into the ring at WrestleMania 20.
I didn't know that happened.
Yeah, I didn't know about that either. I was like, man, they did such an amazing job at covering that up.
Yeah, like I've never heard that from any dirt sheet report or anything. I've never known that happened.
Yeah. So they actually released him in 2004, and he announced that he was retiring in 2007. Um, and throughout all of this time, there were the Howard Stern appearances, which are really hard to watch. Um, you know, I have always been on the fuck John Cena bandwagon, and now people are joining me on this bandwagon. I'm like, let me just say this. This is a personal opinion. I think the man really is an asshole. And I think he does all these make a wish things for kids to make himself feel better about being a piece of shit. That's
What?
always been my take on John Cena. And it's not any different based, I mean, it's
Right.
just reinforced based on this Howard Stern appearance.
Well, what did I say to you last week when we were recording about baby faces? Right? You cannot be a baby face if you're driving $1 million car.
Right.
You, like, dude, like on the Total Bellas thing, or the whatever the Diva show is, Total Divas. Um, on that show, I'm like, the dude is literally like, the dude will get out there and say, "I fight for the hardworking common man," blah blah blah, all of this stuff. Like CM Punk said it best in a promo against him. He's like, "You are what you hate. You're the New York Yankees. You're not the
Yeah.
Boston Red Sox. You're the New York Yankees, and you refuse to acknowledge it."
Right. I mean, he was absolutely a corporate shill for the last 10 years. If I'm being generous, it's really longer than that.
Yeah.
And he was watered down and just lowest common denominator entertainment. And if you look at the last 10 years, the only people cheering him were mostly small children or women that thought he was attractive. You know, most of those crowds were mixed reactions, and the majority were booing him, depending on who he was across from.
Yes. And I've always said that. Like, I'm just like, he can't go up there in jean shorts and, this, homeless guy look almost, to he's lives in a mansion and, is driving like all of these cars and stuff like that. It doesn't work. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. Like, and they figured that out somehow with Roman Reigns for whatever reason.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. Um, you know, circling back to Canyon and this episode, I honestly thought Cena's comments were way worse than what Flair said, because I thought that Flair, you know, some of the stuff that Flair said was probably really hurtful to Chris, but Flair I thought didn't go out of his way to hurt him. You know what I mean? It sounded like it was like they asked him, is Canyon good enough to be on the program? And Rick, probably in his honest opinion, said he's not at the moment. Whereas Cena, it felt like he was like saying the company line, going out of his way to be as hurtful as possible to Canyon. That's the way I felt about it.
I didn't know what to feel about it, dude. It was tough to watch either way. But that's the problem when you go on those talk shows, man. Uh, they ask for your opinion and stuff like that. You give it, you're gonna get backlash for it.
Yeah, exactly.
And two, you should just watch what you say in general. Like, it's just, you know, um, I don't know. But Ric Flair is in deep water already as it is. So,
I think this is a great time to note that all of the opinions of all of the guests on an Evolved Review are solely the opinions of those guests, and we are not responsible for them in any way, shape, or form.
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
um, so yeah, man, this kind of leads to the downfall. Things are kind of getting worse and worse for Canyon. He had multiple suicide attempts. From I think the earliest one that he admitted to was 2003. He had taken like 50 sleeping pills. Um,
Mm.
there was a couple of times where he, got on the phone and like threatened to kill himself and things like that. And in 2010, he actually did it. And it's very upsetting to think about how I think today there would have been a lot more awareness around the situation,
Yeah.
and probably people would have reached out to him and tried to get him some help. before it got to that point. But unfortunately, you know, 2010, even though that was only 11 years ago, a lot of things have progressed a very long way in a very, short amount of time. I mean, like, if you look at the Daphne situation, uh, that whole thing, I mean, even though it ended the same way, immediately when she was even talking about harming herself, people were mobilized. DDP was trying to get it there. Her family was trying to get there. Mick Foley was trying to get there. I mean, if Kanyon had done some of the things that he was doing at this point in time today, I just think there would have been a lot of outreach. I mean, the guy was crying out for help for a long time, and I mean, it wasn't like he just decided to do this one day. There were so many signs that he was suicidal. And, I'm not blaming anybody, of course, because people in his life saw it and tried to help him. The Young Bucks
I,
certainly tried, and James Mitchell certainly tried.
I was about to say, I mean, he told people that, and they tried to help him, and it just kind of comes down to that point in life where you're like, man, I've tried to help you, but it's like I don't want to be selfish, but if you can't help yourself, then I can't help you, kind of thing. And that just it's such a tough position to be in and stuff like that. And we talk about what would be accepted today and what would not. It's funny because when he officially came out to everyone, it was like like he even said it, like when the Young Bucks were talking about it, that like he was like, I'm gay, and they were like, okay.
Right.
Like he expected them to hate him.
Well,
And
and times have changed a lot.
yeah,
When between 1995 when he started in WCW and I think he came out in 2007 if I'm not
yeah,
mistaken.
yeah, something around that.
Um yeah, things changed a lot in what I mean, it seems like a very short period of time. It's like 11 years, but or 12 years depending on when during the year this happened, but I mean, yeah, 11, 12 years worth of time, things change drastically, especially when it comes to like LGBT issues and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the stuff that I'm glad that the business is changing and stuff like that. And other stuff that's changing about it. You know,
Yeah,
we can say that there is stuff, all of the extra moves people are doing, the spot fest, blah blah blah, all that stuff. I get that. But this is the kind of stuff that does need to change about the wrestling business and has needed to for a while.
yeah. I mean, it's come forward a lot. I mean, the Vince McMahon idea of storytelling and what's funny and what it's okay to do to people and things like that. I'm so glad that we're moving away from that
Yeah.
because it is toxic. It is very abusive. And a lot of talents have suffered under that. Some have succeeded under it, but more people have ruined their lives trying to be WWE superstars or main event WWE superstars than people that have been main event WWE superstars. Is all of the blame for that on Vince McMahon? No. But does he carry some of the blame for it? Absolutely. Does
Yes.
he think he's to blame for any of it? I doubt it. Vince seems completely unbothered by any of it,
Yeah.
including Owen Hart.
Yeah, he really does. And I don't know. I can't speak for Vince McMahon, kind of thing, but just everything that I see, and just the way everything is so shielded off in WWE, like everything is shielded off, and it's like, well, if you got so much to hide, then
That's true. Well, the thing is, we are going to put Vince McMahon on trial when our top 10 sins of Vince McMahon episode comes out sometime in the next year or so.
we might
Um,
do that during the steroid trial.
yeah, that's true. That would be actually a great follow up to the steroid trial. Like right after the steroid trial, we can do that because the steroid trial is going to be on the list.
Yeah, and I said
Um,
I said we should wait till we see that episode because we have no idea what's gonna come out with that one.
Agreed. And we really don't know what's going to come up. I mean, if you look at this season, out of these 14 episodes, at least half of them, Vince McMahon has either done something fucked up or been present when something was fucked up was going on and didn't say anything.
Right. Except for the one that's going to be up next, which I am excited about.
That's right. Our very next episode is going to be about FMW. It's going to be Dark. We're going to cover Dark Side of the Rings FMW. It's
Yes.
already out as we're recording this. I'm probably going to go watch it in a bit, so we'll have that episode out to you in the next week or so.
I probably will have seen it as much times as you saw in game.
Oh man, that's a lot. I've probably seen it in game like 40 or 50 times at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, um, I will let you know. I did go back and watch Brian Danielson and Kenny Omega last night.
Really?
Yeah, it was a great match. I mean, it was just a really good match.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was. And you know who else thought it was great?
Jim Cornette, and he said the exact same thing that I said about it. That it was a Brian Danielson match that had Kenny Omega in
Yes.
it.
It look. All right. So I agree with that. Okay. I don't think though all of Kenny Omega's matches have always been like that.
No,
Like
but his best matches are when someone carries him, like Okada.
or Tomorrow Ishii.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that Omega, and once again, we're off topic, but I'm not saying that Omega is bad. I just think he's not. I think he's a triple A guy, and people think he's a quadruple A guy. He's not a Steve Austin. He's more of a, I don't know,
Triple A.
test. Sure. You went with a better option. Yeah, I think maybe I don't know if he's. I guess he probably is a Triple H. I don't know. I've seen Triple H get some great matches out of people who weren't that awesome. Maybe he's more of a JBL. Not in the move for move sense, but when JBL was like the champion, and he was doing the whole George Bush gimmick. If he was in there with somebody that was amazing, then he could do really well. Like his feud with Eddie. But as soon as you put him in there with somebody like Dave Batista, it was a fucking nightmare.
Okay,
So
I guess I can see that.
yeah, just not from. I'm not saying that Kenny Omega and J is this. The Kenny Omega's not better than
No,
JBL.
no, I get what you're saying, but
Yeah.
dude, like, I mean, I'm just saying, I watched Dynamite's episode the other night, and look, I'm just gonna say this, folks, and I just have to say this because I was a kid watching WCW Nitro again when this happened. Arn Anderson cut a promo and it was the most Arn Anderson promo of all time. Like it was the greatest thing I have ever seen. Have you seen it?
Oh yeah, I watched it. Yeah, yeah. I've already seen Dynamite, and let me tell you, that was brilliant because the Cody Rhodes heel turn is solidified. I
Yeah, it's
mean, that was
happening.
the last nail in the coffin.
Yeah, it's happening. I still I would have given it more spark than what they did. I don't know what they've got, coming up for it and stuff like that. I guess if they really wanted to turn him, heel, have him be with the elite. But if you read reports and you hear about it, which by the way, I wanted to ask you about this on this program before we wrap things up. What did you think about the reports that Tony Khan has taken away all of that creative freedom and that is why the shows have been probably so good.
I mean, I kind of predicted that on a when we reviewed that episode of Dynamite a while back that you can 100% tell. Go back and watch 1 year ago AEW. It's not the same show.
No, it's not. It's not.
And he was very smart to do that because giving talents creative control is like the WCW book of what not to fucking do. And I'm very glad that he has reined that in because Kenny Omega booking the women's division, the Young Bucks booking the tag division, Cody Rhodes doing fuck all, Chris Jericho booking his own stuff. I'm sure Jericho probably still is booking his own stuff. But Jericho, I'm willing to put up with. Jericho's like the old guy at the nursing home who's trying to show you the magic trick where he, like pulls your nose off your face, and you just kind of laugh, and you're like, ha ha ha, that's a nice trick, and you're just kind of humoring him, because every now and then Jericho will do some cockamamie nonsense. that I just think is way left field. But you give him a pass because he's Chris fucking Jericho. Hell, the man did a lion salt on TV this week, and I thought that we were never going to see that from him again. I didn't think he could still do it.
Yeah, but he did.
He sure as hell did.
He freaking did, and I still love Jericho. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, dude, like I have noticed that ever since, really, to be honest with you, I think it's been ever since the disaster of Full Gear of last year after the poof that Tony Khan looked at it and went, okay, I've got to do something here because he realized that that was a major flop and that if he was going to recover from it, then he had to, do something drastic. So what did he do? He took control of literally everything. He said, "All right, so we're not doing this, we're not doing that, we're going to do this, we're going to do this." And ever since they've gone back to crowds, that's when they really pick things back up because once again, now he can see who truly is over as a face or as a heel, like who the people like, who they don't like.
And there's been no more 40-minute matches on Dynamite that aren't good. There's been no more people wrestling in orange juice. There's just all sorts of shit that they cut out that needed to be cut out.
Yeah.
Anyway, man, I think this is all my voice is going to be able to do. It's going. Anyway, thanks for joining us, guys. Within the next week, we'll be recording the FMW for you. Hopefully, I'll be 100% by then, and we can go off on all these wild tangents we're known for.
Oh, I'm going
Caleb,
to be going off on tangents on that episode. I can tell you that right now.
absolutely, man. I know you're looking forward to doing that one. Thanks
Yeah.
for joining me here each and every week. And to everybody at home, this has been an Involved Review.